Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone in the franchise world. My name is Paul Segreto, and this is Franchise Today. It is Wednesday, April 6, 2016. My co-host, Stan Friedman.
Paul, how are you, my friend? Good to hear your voice.
Doing well, Stan. It was interesting that we were both in Denver last week. Did not get a chance to hook up, even though we were both in the same town. I had a very interesting experience as I got to the airport. As that storm hit on Wednesday, we went from clear blue skies to not being able to see out the side window of the plane because of the snow. And actually, we took off in a heavy snow.
You know, I think Denver is probably the most unique place on the planet when it comes to the number of changes in climate or weather in the space of a few hours, much less in a day. Because in my short time in town, I saw snow coming down sideways so hard, wind, really aggressive wind, blue skies, sun shining, all in the same hour as that snow. And it didn't just happen once, you know, something like an anomaly or a fluke. It probably happened 4 or 5 times over the course of the few days that I was there. So, yeah, I'm just in Denver. I guess you just look at the mountains and you roll it off your shoulders and say, "So what?"
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty. I kept seeing the white blankets of snow across the mountaintops. But when I got out of my hotel at 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning, not thinking I'm in Denver, I almost went flying on my butt down the stairs that were blanketed with ice. So that was definitely a wake-up.
Well, you saw more than I did then, because I didn't see much of anything sticking anywhere. You know, I just saw a lot of it falling, but I didn't see a whole lot sticking. I'll tell you the one thing that stuck with me, though, was the first time I posted on Facebook, too, the first time in my many, many years of traveling for either business or pleasure, where you check into a hotel that likes to remind you that it's a no-smoking property, including marijuana, which is now legal in the state of Colorado, and they post the sign, hey, you know, Section 54, or whatever the name of the law was, passed last year making marijuana consumption legal in Colorado. However, our hotel is non-smoking, period.
So they didn't have any problem with you bringing in those dozen brownies, though, right?
Well, I mean, they didn't say anything about what you could eat. You're right. Like, Paul, like, totally, man. Like, just totally.
Far out there, dude. Great fun. You know, we're coming off of a tremendous show last week where the topic was entrepreneurship, and you brought on as our guest the esteemed Christopher Hanks from Kennesaw State University Entrepreneurship Center. And it really was a very well listened to show. I might even go out on a limb and say over the next couple of weeks, it might break some records for Franchise Today.
Well, I certainly hope so, because what a better topic to embrace, and what a passionate guy. I mean, I watched Chris Hanks after I was introduced to him by Tom Wood. I just watched the way he approaches business and manages the relationships with his students at KSU, as well as the business community, is just something to see. I mean, if academia could produce guys like Chris Hanks all over the country, entrepreneurship would take it through the roof, well north of any place it already goes. Here's a guy who inspires young kids to possibility thinking, and I know that while many parents send their kids to fine schools and have saved for years to do it, with the visions or dreams of their kids becoming professors themselves, or doctors or lawyers or some other types of professionals. Today's world, there's no profession that's tougher, more challenging, requiring a great education than entrepreneurship and owning your business and owning your life. And guys like Chris Hanks are absolutely inspiring tomorrow's next wave of next generation entrepreneurs. And I'm proud to know the guy, and I'm thrilled that he joined us for the hour we had together.
Yeah, it was really, really great information. It's been a slow week in franchising. Stan, do you have anything for front of the house?
Yeah, Paul, it's never a slow week. The translation to that for the benefit of our audience is it's been such a busy week in my world that I didn't take the time that I might have to really scrub what's going on for the front of the house. But I will tell you, Paul, there are a couple things that I'll ask our audience to do. One thing in particular that I've done this week, yet again, and I'll ask everyone who hasn't yet done it to do it, and that's the call to action. The IFA put out the call to action this week again to help stop harmful new federal overtime regulations from being enacted. And by simply going onto the IFA Insider or to the IFA's website, you can link up to send a letter to your representative. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. You simply put in your home address in the template with your zip code where you reside. This has to be where you reside. And it's going to come up with the list of who your legislators are in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate. It'll actually format the letter for you. All you have to do is put your email address in, and off it goes. And then you can post it out on Facebook that you've done it, or you can tweet it out on Twitter that you've done it, or you can have it LinkedIn doing the same and letting everybody in your community know that this is important to you, and ask them by way of those posts to do the same thing. So the new federal overtime regulations from the U.S. Department of Labor, which will hurt both franchise, small businesses, and workers seeking advancements in their careers. The regulation could be finalized as soon as this coming May, and the rule would double the overtime exemption pay threshold from $23,660 to $50,440, resulting in labor cutbacks, which will dramatically increase payroll and compliance expenses for small businesses. So by getting this letter out to your representative today, you're going to support the Protecting Workplace Advancement and Opportunity Act, and all it will take is a couple of clicks and not even a half minute of your time to make the huge impact on letting your legislators hear the damage and the impact that this would have on franchising. So please take the time. It's only a minute, and participate. It doesn't cost you anything but a half minute of your time. Also for the front of the house, also in the IFA Insider this week, I saw a smiling face that was familiar to me. It's Shane Evans. And if you want to succeed working side by side with your extended family, it's important to have patience, collaborate, and set clear boundaries as to how to get that done. Well, who better than Shane, who works with her brothers, her mother? It's a family business at Massage Heights. And you can read all about how she manages that and maybe pick up a nugget or two that might make sense in your own business in Franchising World's exclusive article. You can catch online in the Franchise World electronic digital edition, or watch for it in print. But great to see Shane Evans sharing out there, Paul. And
yeah, really great information coming down the pike about Massage Heights and all that's going on there. They formed a new parent company. They made an investment in the Gents Place, which I believe Glenn will be overseeing. And they just signed a 35-unit deal for the city of Chicago with some very experienced multi-unit operators in different industry segments. So there's really some great things going on at Massage Heights.
I'm thrilled to know those guys. They're all just terrific people. Personally, love doing business with them. Have always enjoyed their participation with us in PAFI as well. So on multiple fronts, very, very, very proud of the relationship that I've got with that family. And speaking of family and friends, Fast Signs is going to host the Franchise Innovation Summit on May 24th, Paul, and they invite you to take your first step toward an innovative future that works for you. Join franchisors, multi-unit franchisees, and other professionals in a full-day innovation summit on Tuesday, May 24th. And again, the IFA Insider will, with a click of the mouse, tell you how you can do that and earn 200 CFE credits for the privilege of doing so. So Fast Signs, again, just always giving back and paying forward.
Yep, and good to know as I have to renew my CFE certification. So there's a good tip.
Well, there you go. Right in your backyard, my friend.
Right in my backyard. Exactly. Well, Stan, we hear a lot about things going on in different levels of government about franchising. And there's a lot of individuals now, again, transitioning executives as the economy has gone through a little bit of a stumble, especially down here in the great state of Texas, with so many oil companies laying off tens of thousands of people. And people are really exploring franchising as the possible next step in their career and to piggyback their early retirement. And Eric Stites, CEO and Managing Director of Franchise Business Review, was quoted as saying, franchising is all about risk and reward. The earlier you get into a system, the greater the risk. And if it succeeds, the greater the reward. And of course, we know there's a lot of emerging brands coming on the scene. So there's a lot of options. And with that, I would like to introduce Eric to Franchise Today. Eric, welcome.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. We know you're quite busy. If not shoveling snow off your roof, certainly with running Franchise Business Review. And I know up in Maine, the temperatures right now aren't quite as warm as you would like them in this, the almost getting into the first full month of spring.
Yeah, no, it's, we were lucky to have a very mild winter this year without a lot of snow. I was not up on my roof at all, but, it's in the mid 30s to, low 40s here for spring. So we're looking forward to that warmer weather.
So before we get moving into, some of the things that you do with Franchise Business Review, we want to talk about some things in general too. What is the legislative landscape right now up in the Northeast and specifically in Maine that you might be able to share with our listening audience?
Yeah, it's interesting. Boy, we could talk politics for the whole hour and not even talk about franchising. I think Maine and New Hampshire both are very similar to pockets of the rest of the country as far as a lot of the issues, key issues that are going on that IFA is trying to raise awareness on. Lots and lots of potential legislation affecting small business owners. Obviously, you touched on it, from overtime to minimum wage, healthcare issues, the small, obviously, as you are well aware, a lot of the states across the country are under pressure, revenue pressure to generate more and more revenues from somewhere. And small businesses, unfortunately, tend to be the first place they go. And especially disturbing, I think, is the trends that we've seen just in the last few years that are particularly, really focused on franchising because franchising gets lumped into big business a lot of times because it's very misunderstood. So it's really, we saw this out in Seattle, and that battle's still going on out there as far as minimum wage in Seattle, and that's carrying on in many other places in the country where it's really creating an unfair playing field for franchisees who are small business owners because they get lumped into big business because, again, the business model is really misunderstood. And obviously a franchise owner is just like any small business owner. They're just operating under a brand, national brand. But when you get into issues where you're creating an unfair playing field, and that benefits, other small businesses that are unfranchised, and basically puts rules in place that they don't have to abide by, but franchisees have to abide by. It really creates, not good environment. So, IFA, along with help from many of us in the franchise industry, has been out there fighting battles. We've been up in the Maine State House, up in the New Hampshire State House, as well as all the state houses across the country, trying to roll back some of these initiatives.
It's funny you mentioned we could talk politics all day long, and usually that prompts Stan or I to start going into our Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders routine, but we won't do that today. And I think we could understand. I wouldn't do it this week, Paul. I promised. Yeah. I just promised. Well, we got the greatest, the fantastic, the best show imaginable. It's so well. Anyway, we could do that on and on and on. And you know which of us is each one. Funny stuff.
Hey, I want to ask you to do us all a favor, Eric, because I know that you and I try to think as we were leading up to today's program, how long it's been and when it was that I first became acquainted with you, and a strange irony in that my memories as I traveled back in time brought me back to you and I first getting acquainted when I was at Wing Zone, and I was searching for some type of a solution, software solution, that would kind of do the things that a little company called FRM can do today, as can others. But I had this glimmer in my eye for things that technology would be able to do, and at the same time, I think you were a backstage developer at a little company called Franchise Solutions, weren't you?
Yeah, it's funny. I got my start at Franchise Solutions, but what's interesting is I was actually my title there was Director of Corporate Development, and I was really more of a marketing guy than anything else. But I got this reputation in the industry for being the tech guy because I had previously owned an internet company before joining Franchise Solutions, and everybody thought I was the internet guru guy. So any tech-related questions came to me, and everybody thought I was this cutting-edge developer. And it's like, well, really, I'm just a marketing guy who kind of understands what technology can do, but don't get me to code anything because I'm dangerous when I try to code stuff.
But it's a testament to this small, incestuous world that we live in franchising. I mean, everybody talks about 6 degrees of separation in life. Any two people can find, 6 degrees of separation, and I always put a decimal in front of that in franchising because it doesn't take a 10-minute conversation with anybody in our world to find out how many different ways or places you may be connected. And when I think of the nexus between me and, although I never worked for Solutions, the relationship that I had with Calvin Haskell, who started Franchise Solutions, was right on the doorstep of my franchising career when we were both in real estate franchising long before he ever started Solutions. And then through Solutions is how I've come to know you and have enjoyed watching your career morph and take form with what you've established with the Business Review. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that transition and how your vision for what Franchise Business Review has become all came to be?
Yeah, it's an interesting path. You mentioned Calvin Haskell, who founded Franchise Solutions, and Franchise Solutions back in the early days, the mid-'90s, really just aggregated inquiries from people that were interested in franchising, primarily through newspaper ads, and then decided, through Calvin's vision, to take that online and create the first, one of the first online directories of franchising. What people today call portals, and there are a dime a dozen, but Franchise Solutions and Bison were among some of the first that were out there. And I joined the company in '99, right, at the kind of when the internet bubble was just about ready to burst, and it was interesting in seeing the company grow and everything this isn't that long ago. I mean, when you think about it, and before that, there wasn't even the internet. So it's amazing what's happened in a little more than a decade. But when I started at Solutions, we were basically growing the company and growing our reach in the industry by partnering with other websites that had a business audience. So going out and partnering with the likes of Inc. Magazine and USA Today and Yahoo, career sites, that sort of thing. And about halfway through my tenure at Solutions, I was working on a project with Dunkin' Brands, actually. They had a challenge where they had a lot of interest in their franchise, but they were having difficulty with their franchisees validating the brand. And it wasn't because their franchisees were unhappy. They were just so busy working and liking what they did that they didn't really want to bring in any additional outsiders. So new candidates were calling franchisees to validate, and they weren't returning their phone calls. So we kind of looked at this challenge and figured out, everybody wants to know the same thing. Are you getting the support you need? Is the training good? Is the leadership team good? Do you like your fellow franchisees, and are you making any money at the end of the day? And, so I basically said to them in a meeting, I said, why don't we just, survey them and ask them those questions and then make that information available to potential candidates, and it'll really help facilitate that validation process. And they thought that was a wonderful idea, but they then said, well, it would have to be done on a third-party basis because they won't believe it if we do it internally. And I said, that's interesting. And it was at the time when, again, Solutions had grown significantly and was about to be acquired by a very large company. And I decided that, I thought that was a pretty good idea. And I had talked to Dunkin' about making it something that they used in their system. And lo and behold, I told my wife I was quitting my job and going out and starting Franchise Business Review.
How'd that go over?
There were tears. So that's, basically Franchise Business Review started in 2005 with the goal of, researching franchisees, asking them about their experience and sharing that information back. The kind of the irony of it all was, as I said, Dunkin' Brands was kind of the main genesis of the idea, and I had a meeting with the whole Dunkin' Brands field team at the IFA conference in 2005, and we were ready to go a couple weeks after conference, and Allied Domecq, the big liquor company that owned them at the time, announced that they were going to spin the company out, and they froze all spending, and my first exciting client with Dunkin' Brands went away overnight.
Wow.
But I was, I was undeterred. I knew I had a lot of friends in the franchise world, so I just started calling everybody I knew. And again, this is 2005 time frame, and generally the response I got from all the franchisors that I talked to were, Eric, are you nuts? You want to call our franchisees and ask them what they think of us? I mean, and a lot of people were like, they were like, our franchisees hate us. So, again, looking back, that first year in business, we surveyed a total of 9 brands, Wing Zone being one of them. Wing Zone was not. They were among the group of franchisors that had franchisees that were very happy, so that was a good thing. But those 9 brands we had surveyed, basically we had given the survey away for free, just to get the franchisors to do it. And at the end of the year, we were thinking, wow, this really isn't working. 9 companies wasn't what I thought. I thought it would be a much more popular thing. And we were kind of scratching our heads, and at the end of the year, we came up with this idea. We knew franchisors were very competitive, and we said, why don't we do awards based on franchisee satisfaction? And we announced the awards in December. We were at the registration for the awards, and we were going to announce the first awards at the following year at the IFA. And in 2 months, we got 170 or so companies to sign up to survey, and it just kind of exploded from there. And it's just amazing, again, when you think back and in that 10-year time period, 11-year time period, the world of franchising has changed significantly from, there at IFA and any other franchise event back, 10 years ago, there weren't any sessions on franchise relations or franchise operations even. I mean, it was all focused on franchise sales and development, and there wasn't really the focus on the franchisee-franchisor relationship that there is today. And it's really, certainly it's helped our business grow, and we've been a part of that kind of transition where I think today the franchising model is much more franchisee-centric and really a franchisee-franchisor partnership, if you will, than it was just a decade ago.
So tell us, Eric, a lot of people, even within franchising, know of Franchise Business Review, but sometimes have a hard time explaining to some of the new franchisors coming in, exactly what Franchise Business Review is. So for our audience, let us know, what is your mission with Franchise Business Review?
Right. That's a great question. My wife doesn't understand that question a lot, and I've been doing this 11 years. So, and our mission has kind of changed over time. I mean, as I described, when we first started 11 years ago, it was really focused. The primary goal was to really facilitate the franchise validation process and highlight companies that have great satisfaction. That's still a big part of our mission today. It starts with surveying franchisees. So we work with brands of all shapes and sizes and contact their franchisees on behalf of the brand and have them tell us. Basically, we have a 33-question benchmark survey that covers everything from training, operational support, marketing, financial opportunity, and so forth. And then we can also customize that to add any additional custom questions a brand wants to dig into. But the difference, really the way our mission has shifted or vision has shifted over that decade is, we still do the awards. That's a big piece of what a lot of companies understand. When we're known for the award, and we're, people think they know what Franchise Business Review is, but what they don't understand is today, we have much more of an operational focus first. So 2/3 of the companies that we survey and work with, we're working with them on an operational basis, and they're not necessarily companies on our awards list. They're trying to figure out where their issues are in their system and how they can get better and how they can really build on that franchisee-franchisor relationship. And then certainly the best of the best of our clients that survey and do have great satisfaction, they appear on our awards list. We publish a whole bunch of different free guides for franchisee candidates that we distribute at trade shows and on the internet, and provide a lot of information for candidates that are considering getting into franchising onto what are the best opportunities based on franchise owner satisfaction. So we're essentially a Consumer Reports or J.D. Power, if you will, of the franchise world. But again, what a lot of people don't realize, both in the industry and outside the industry, is we work on an operational basis with a lot of brands and really do a lot more kind of deep dive research and helping them get at more operationally focused issues. And since we got started that first year where we only worked with 9 brands, I mean, today we've worked with over 900 brands. So it's been quite a ride.
That is awesome. What a great story. You're listening to Franchise Today. I'm Stan Friedman along with Paul Segreto, and our guest today is Eric Stites, founder and CEO of the Franchise Business Review. Franchise Today is brought to you by the Franchise Foundry, a business accelerator that boasts more than 30 years of experience helping emerging brands bring sustainable growth to their franchise systems. Utilizing hybrid coaching and consulting approaches, the Foundry team fosters the development and the deployment of effective short and long-term solutions for their clients. And these clients are in several key areas. These clients are served in several key areas, including franchise management and operations, change management, traditional and digital marketing, technology, relationship and business management, and of course, franchise recruitment and development. The Franchise Foundry also assists franchise brands with raising capital and exploring merger and acquisition opportunities. You can learn more about their expanding list of clients across various industry segments at franchisefoundry.com. That's www.franchisefoundry.com for Paul Segreto's Franchise Foundry. Franchise Today is also brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering best-in-class CRM and content management software designed specifically for managing franchised relationships. Built in industry-leading Microsoft Dynamics CRM, these solutions are both cloud-based as well as fully accessible from right inside your Outlook inbox. With FRM, you'll spend more time focused on the business of building top and bottom line growth, while FRM assists with effectively managing communications and collaboration with both prospective and existing franchisees. Sort, report, and dashboard all of your vital data and empower your team to accelerate franchise sales. Streamline your store openings and better manage your processes, workflows, unit-level performance, and compliance so that your franchise business review looks great. No hassles, no long-term contracts, no excuses, just solutions. On the web at frmsolutions.com. That was a little sleazy of me there, Eric, wasn't it? I slid in a one-liner about make your franchise business review better.
I like that. Hey, so I have a question for you. I have a question for you guys because, in the intro, you set the bar really high for me because you were talking about last week's show with Chris Hanks and how popular it was, and I'm, the whole time you're talking about that, I'm thinking, oh God, what am I going to say to make this show equally popular? So. Give me what are the hard questions? What do people want to know?
I'll tell you what I want to know, and I only have 50% of the say-so here, but I can throw it out as a question that intrigues me. You've built something of a universe behind you. I'm interested in knowing what it is on a day-to-day basis you spend most of your time doing when you've got somebody like Michelle Rowan running the day-to-day. And again, I learned something in my research today, in prep for today, which is just how long Michelle's been there. I mean, she didn't just come in as an executive. She came up. She's there almost from the beginning, isn't she?
Yeah. No, Michelle was essentially employee number one, and as you all know, having built businesses yourself, you know how hard it is to hire good people, and I just got lucky for whatever reason. Out of the gate and hired Michelle Rowan 6 months in, and her first event, actually her first day at the office wasn't at the office. We were at the Franchise Update conference in Atlanta, and she was brand new to franchising, brand new to me, and we walked into the first luncheon with a couple hundred people in the room, and I made her sit at a table without me. I said, "Go meet other people. We can't sit at the same table." So it's been an interesting ride for her, and we just for whatever reason we sync really well together.
Well, it seems to be working, and I look at the depth of your organization and the people that are behind both you and Michelle, and you've got some extremely talented and capable people on the team, managing the relationships between yourselves and your clients so that they can better manage the relationships between themselves and their franchisees. Talk about eating your own dog food, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the hardest part, I think, of my job today is that, I mean, one of the things that attracted me to franchising early on, even, way back when at Solutions, was, I've just always been a small business guy. I just love the small business model, and working in franchising is so cool because you get to work with all sorts of different small businesses from all different industries that all share, franchising in common. And, it's just really cool for me. I mean, I guess the hardest part for me, because I am very entrepreneurial and as Michelle would put it, distracted very easily by the shiny bright light objects, whatever that, idea of the day happens to be. I mean, I would love to spend more time with each of our clients and really dig in and get to know their business and their challenges. And but obviously, it's hard to do that when you get to a certain size. And again, I'm lucky to have a great staff that can spend more time than I can with everybody and get to know some of the challenges that they have and work with them individually.
You really do have a great team, and I have a funny story that involved Michelle. I don't know if you've ever heard it, Eric, and the name eludes me. The person you had working for you that wound up in the home health care business.
Oh yeah,
what's her name?
Yeah, Molly Rowe.
Molly, that's it, Molly. I kept wanting to say Kelly, so I'm sorry, Molly, but. We're sitting there, it was me and Christian Faulkner at Franchise Update Conference in Atlanta. And Michelle and Molly were at the table with us. We were in the restaurant. And Molly's eyes got as big as Dallas, and I could see her across the table. And she was just fixed on something behind me. And she was just stricken with fear. I could see in her eyes. And behind me, had to be a water roach walking up the wall that I swear had to be 3 inches long. And it was one of the funniest moments I've had in franchising. Michelle kind of just blew it off like, okay, well, let's just keep talking. And Molly was just now had her feet on the chair and everything else as the roach scurried away into the kitchen. So, but anyway, that was funny. But you ask about the hard questions, and I have a hard question, and I'm going to phrase it very delicately. As I was doing research for today's show, as I often do, trying to dive into some of the things online that we find, I found an interesting conversation, and I imagine this is probably more typical than normal. I mean, more typical than we would think, because you're on the review side. And there are so many people. There are people out there that just want to take pot shots at franchising, want to say that, franchising is no good. The big bad franchisor, stealing the franchisees, business out from under them, terminating them for no reason. And, of course, we know that's not the case. And I actually saw some interaction between you and some people online, and you were saying, I just can't understand how this brand would do it. And, of course, they were turning around at that point and saying, well, that's the typical bully, trying to put it on. Is it really true and stuff? I mean, how do you deal with that, in such a, what I found to be a very politically correct measure? Because me, as a hot-blooded Italian, I mean, the gloves would come off, and I'd be firing, Scud missiles across the bow. I mean, you did a remarkable job, and I know you know which incident we're talking about. And you don't have to get into the exact details unless, of course, you want to. But how do you keep that political correctness? It's something that you are obviously so passionate about, but more importantly, something that you're very transparent and truthful about, because, people are relying on you for information. in order to make the right decision?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I got to say, to be honest, it was a learning curve for me. And we all know the internet is a unique place today, and it's really changed, over the last 10 years, as I've said. In the early days, when I first got into Franchise Business Review, if people would put things out there, I would respond much more frequently than I do today, and maybe not in as much of a politically well prepared as today. And I just learned after an incident or two that there's no winning those wars. I mean, there's individuals out there, either on their own or part of certain websites that just, they want to stir stuff up. They want to, they always have to have the last word, and whatever their word is, and there's just no winning at those battles. And so from time to time, I will address some of those issues when my hot Italian blood gets a little overboiled and I have to react a little bit. 90% of the time I don't react at all, and it's I've just learned that it's better to just let it die. Nobody's going to actually the 5 people that are actually reading that post really don't care. And I think it's pretty obvious. I think franchisee candidates, I think people in the industry, I think people are pretty smart. And when you go online and on some of these sites and you see some of these blog posts or some of these articles that have this long stream of comments, and you see that the comments are either by guest or the same
right.
people over and over again, you take it with a grain of salt. And I lost a few battles very early on and got dragged through the mud quite a bit, and I still get dragged through the mud quite a bit, but I just have learned to ignore it. But
yeah, don't feel bad. I stepped into that water one time, and I was surprised I had any meat below the knee when it came out. Wow, yeah. It was a learning experience. And how do you advise your clients when they get dragged into that type of situation? Because obviously, if they're your clients, they're concerned about having the right reviews, having the right validation, and then you see something like this pop up, and it really takes them sideways.
Yeah, again, it's hard because when something like that happens, you want to react, and again, most of the time we advise our clients to just let it go. And after a day or two, they realize that that's the right decision to let it go. Other times, something does require some sort of reaction, and everything that we do is typically tied to data in our research. So, we'll put the data that we have out there, and somebody may question the way it was done, or our methodology, or what it represents, and that's fine. They can question it, but the reality is that the data may not be always perfect. We try to do as good a job as we can. In some cases, there are limited sources, so the stuff that we put out is the best that we can make it, and it's really the best that's available in most cases. And not everybody's going to believe it, and so they react the way they do. And and we advise our clients as well to just let a lot of that stuff kind of roll off and
let it go, like the Disney movie Frozen says, let it go, let it go, let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
Shifting
Eric,
gears.
What do you see happening as we morph through these changing times in our business model of franchising, and most of us that have been involved in this business as long as Paul, myself, and you have been more involved on the Zor side of the business over the years. And even as we shared some of the legislative things in the front of the house today and this constant messaging that's coming out our way about the existential threats to franchising, what do you see from the prospective franchisees and existing franchisees' points of view that you've got greater exposure to on a day-to-day basis than perhaps Paul and I do? Has it shifted? Do you see a shift in the things that are important to people that are looking at becoming franchisees, or from the eyes of those that are hearing all these existential threats to the business model and how it impacts them at the unit level? It used to be everything could be solved in franchising by taking care of unit economics, and everything else was like back of the list. Is it still that way now, or are cultural issues and existential and political issues something that resonates as loudly at the unit level as well? Do you see a shift in that?
Well, yes and no. I think that the biggest thing that's changed in the last 10 years certainly is just transparency all around. And when I say that, I mean, really it was 10 years ago, it was the Wild West. I mean, people would invest in a franchise and, they had franchise disclosure documents, but you really had no idea as a franchisee, what your performance might be. It was just shooting in the dark. And today there's so much more information available, whether it be franchisee satisfaction data available from like a site like ours, or the amount of information in the franchise disclosure document has changed dramatically, so that people know much more today, at least ballpark what the average unit economics look like, so that you have a much better sense of that. Franchisors have gotten a lot smarter about their recruitment, and they're not just selling franchises to sell franchises. They're actually recruiting and finding the best candidates that are the best fit for their system. So that, obviously failure rates are less and all that. So it's, I think the last 10 years has been great for franchising. I think part of that transparency, and I talk to this all the time, small business is hard. Whether you're talking about owning a franchise or a non-franchise small business, I mean, it is a really hard thing to do, is to get up and run a small business every day. And I think that has become a lot, I guess, more out there and educated a lot more people about what small business ownership is really like. I mean, to some extent it gets sensationalized, on some of the shows that you may see, like Shark Tank and some of the other CNBC shows about small business ownership and the millions that people are making and all that stuff. But I think the reality is that a lot of people have realized that owning a small business is hard and it's a lot of work, and I may not want to work that hard. And it's interesting, and you mentioned Mr. Hanks earlier about his entrepreneurship classes. If you ask, adults, college students, young, old, the millennials, there has always been and always will be a very strong interest in entrepreneurship and business ownership. But at the end of the day, it's only a very small percentage of people that actually, if you had a room full of 100 people and said, how many of you are interested in owning your own business, 99 or 90% of them would raise their hands. But we all know that only about 10% will actually go out and do it. And so again, the wanting to own a business and the actual desire to go out and do the hard work to make it happen and make it successful. And I think that's the biggest thing that's been a challenge for franchising, is that franchising, and franchising did this a little bit to itself in just the marketing over the last couple decades, is that franchising is not the silver bullet to owning a business and being successful. It is a successful path to business ownership, but owning a franchise is still a hell of a lot of work. And I think that in the early days of franchising, they may have made it seem easier, and people got in and were like, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and people were unhappy and didn't want to work that hard and failed. And so, I mean, I tell people that all the time. I speak at the franchise expos, and I'll have a couple hundred candidates come in, and I'll be like, look, franchising is great. I love franchising, but it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. A lot of you won't make it because you won't want to work that hard, and that's just the reality of business ownership. And so, I think that has probably been the biggest change, is just the again, the transparency and the knowledge. And I think when you look at the space today, from a like the lead generation sites, the portals that are out there, the numbers are way down compared to what they were back in 2003, 2005 timeframe, pre-recession timeframe, and that's really because people have become more educated, and the people that are serious are the ones that are inquiring. They can get a lot more information on their own. So less people are inquiring to franchises, but of that smaller percentage, more people are actually pulling trigger and ultimately becoming franchisees.
Very interesting. Very interesting. There's
I kind of think I kind of think it's like the difference when you talk about a franchise business versus just a small business owner. I think of it as like the difference between driving a bus or driving a train. The bus can be all over the road. You're navigating your way through traffic. At least in a franchise business, you're on the rails.
Yeah.
You're still navigating. I mean, you're still having to drive it. You're still having to operate it correctly, and you've got a lot of people in both cases whose lives you're probably responsible for. But at least you can take the navigation portion with a franchise business and take that off the table. If you've got yourself involved with the right brand and you've hitched your wagon to the right engine, then you can leave the navigation, the heads-up stuff, to the franchisor and just put your head down and execute, and know that the plan that you're executing is proven and that it works. But it's not making it any less work. It's just
right.
It's still execution.
It's interesting when we look at our data, and I think this is a big misunderstood thing on the franchisor side too, is that most people that get into franchising. I mean, sure, they want to make money, but they really want to belong to something bigger than themselves. And we see that in our data time and time again, where franchisees get frustrated because the company isn't involving them as much just in the community aspect. And that's the biggest piece that people get into franchising for is, again, they need to make some money and they need to make, at least survive. They don't need to be millionaires. But they want to be part of that broader community and really belong and be part of that franchisee network and have the franchisor, at least ask their opinion on things. And they know the franchisor at the end of the day is going to make the decisions, but they just want to be involved in that process. And I think that's where, when we talk about, the very best brands that are out there, the companies that show up on the top of our awards list all the time, the Fast Signs and the Home Instead and Firehouse Subs and such. I mean, those companies just do a really good job of, listening to their franchisees and treating their franchisees like family. And that's really what it's about at the end of the day. I mean, that's what people get into franchising for, is to be part of that bigger group and bigger than themselves.
Yeah, you said it earlier, Eric. You said, so many misunderstand what franchising is. And there's a big component of that is the development of relationships. Obviously, it's the cornerstone of franchising, and specifically an interdependent relationship between all stakeholders. And
absolutely,
we have to continue getting the word out. A good friend of mine John Colarossi was a co-president of AMCO back in the day, and John served under me as a senior VP at Moran Industries when I was president of Moran Industries back in the early 90s. And he's been out of franchising for some time, and we've had some very in-depth conversations. And he always says, about, the passion that I have for franchising, just like you guys do as well. And he sent me an interesting note after a recent conversation. And he said, franchising is like a drug addiction, isn't it? After a while with it, we wonder why we're there. After a while without it, we miss it and want it back. We feel that sometimes it may not even be good for us, but we love the manic highs and even the painful lows as we work around them. And he said to me, you were made for it. And I think I could say the same thing about you, Eric, and certainly about you, Stan, as well. It is all about relationships. It's why we do this show and have people like yourself, Eric, that join us and give of their time of the show. And certainly it's a reason why Stan and I do this each and every week live, despite some crazy schedules that we have. So, Eric, I really appreciate you being our guest today on Franchise Today.
Absolutely. I appreciate both of you taking the time to chat a little bit. And too bad the show's not 3 hours, because I know we could keep going.
Yeah, we could dive into the fighting skeebies and no telling where else we wind up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's a good reason for me to say, Eric, we would like to have you back in the future as a returning guest on Franchise Today.
I would love to do that. Just let me know when.
Will do.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, Stan, another
Thank you, guys.
Great show. You're welcome. Another great show. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of listeners on this one, too. Great topic, and Eric's right. We could have spoken, a couple more hours. I wanted to talk about, the Franchise Relations Committee at the IFA and some other things, but, we only have an hour.
And some might suggest it's a good thing.
Yep, absolutely. Well, until next week, my name is Paul Segreto, wishing you the best, the very best of this great, great thing we call franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.